When my daughter-in-law told me I was no longer welcome in the home I helped build, I collapsed into tears on the front lawn as neighbors watched. 3 days later, I was sitting across from my late husband's lawyer, holding a document that would change everything. That's when I realized family loyalty is like cheap makeup. It looks convincing until the first sign of rain. If you're watching this, subscribe and tell me where you're from. Because trust me, this story twists more than a roller coaster built by a drunk engineer. I never thought I'd be that woman, the mother-in-law crying on the sidewalk with 2 hastily packed suitcases. At 63, I thought I knew what heartbreak felt like. I'd buried my husband of 40 years just 18 months earlier. But nothing prepared me for seeing my own son Paolo standing behind his wife Anna, arms crossed, telling me it was time to move on. "Mom, we need our space," he said, not even looking me in the eyes. "We've found a nice retirement community." Anna stepped forward, her perfectly manicured hand reaching for my shoulder in fake sympathy. "You'll love it there, Mary. People your age, activities every day." She smiled that smile, the one that never reached her eyes. I'd spent the last year and a half living with them after Robert died. I'd sold my house to help them with the down payment on this beautiful colonial. An investment in our family, Robert had called it before he passed. "But this is my home too," I whispered. "We appreciate everything you've done," Anna said, her voice honeyed with false gratitude. "But Paolo and I need to establish our own household. The children need more space." My grandchildren, Emma and Lucas, were watching from the staircase, confusion on their little faces. Emma, only 7, started to cry. Lucas, 9, looked angry. "Grandma's leaving?" Emma asked. "Just for a little while," Anna answered before I could speak. "Grandma needs her own special place." I looked at Paolo, waiting for him to defend me, to remember the nights I'd stayed up with him when he was sick, the college tuition I'd helped with, the $20,000 I'd contributed to this very house. But he just stared at the floor, a stranger wearing my son's face. "I'll get a hotel tonight," I managed to say, my voice surprisingly steady despite the earthquake happening inside me. Script part separator, equals. That night at the Best Western, I stared at the ceiling, replaying every moment. How had I missed the signs? The whispered conversations that stopped when I entered rooms. Anna's increasingly pointed comments about generational living not working for everyone. Paolo's growing distance. I called my friend Diane at midnight, sobbing so hard she could barely understand me. "They threw me out, Dee. My own son." "I'm coming to get you," she said immediately. "Pack your things." Diane had been my rock since high school. When she arrived, her face was flushed with anger. "This is outrageous, Mary. That house is partly yours." "I gave them that money as a gift," I said weakly. "Did you sign anything saying that?" she demanded. I hadn't. Robert had always handled our finances. He was the methodical one, the planner, while I was the nurturer. In our 40 years together, it had worked perfectly. Now I felt lost without his guidance. Diane's guest room became my temporary sanctuary. Each morning, I woke expecting to hear my grandchildren's laughter, only to remember where I was. The silence was deafening. Paolo called once, just once, 3 days after. His voice was strained, formal. "Mom, we've enrolled you at Shady Pines. It's really nice. They have an opening next month." "Shady Pines?" My voice cracked. "You want to put me in a home? It's not like that. It's independent living. You'll have your own apartment." "Paolo, I don't need assisted living. I'm 63, not 93. Anna thanks." "What about what I think?" I interrupted, a spark of anger finally breaking through my grief. "What about what your father would think?" The line went silent. Then, coldly, "Dad's not here anymore, Mom. We need to move forward." When he hung up, I felt something shift inside me. The tears dried up. In their place came something harder, something I hadn't felt in decades: determination. Script part separator, equals. Diane found me staring at my phone that evening. "You look different," she said, placing a cup of tea beside me. "I feel different," I replied. "I've been grieving too long. First Robert, now my relationship with Paolo. But something inside me just woke up. That night, I couldn't sleep. Robert's voice kept echoing in my head. I've taken care of everything, Mary. What had he meant? He'd always been the meticulous one, handling our finances, our legal matters. While I was busy being a mother and eventually a grandmother, Robert was planning, organizing. At 3 a.m., I remembered something. Robert's study at our old house, the one we'd lived in for 30 years before I sold it. There had been a safe, and inside, a burgundy folder labeled contingencies. Before the sale closed, I'd emptied that safe, stuffing its contents into boxes I'd brought to Paolo and Anna's. Boxes that now sat in their attic. I needed those papers. The next morning, I called Paolo at his office, knowing Anna would be at her yoga class. Mom, I'm really busy. I need to get some personal documents from the attic, I interrupted. Robert's papers. It'll take me 15 minutes. Can't it wait? We're meeting with the Shady Pines director tomorrow. No, it can't wait, I said firmly. I'll be there at noon. When I arrived, Paolo had already left. A note on the door said he had an emergency at work. How convenient. But he'd left the key under the mat as promised. The house felt different. Family photos had been rearranged, with several featuring me now missing. My cookbooks had been boxed up, my reading chair moved to a corner. It had only been 4 days, but they were already erasing me. In the attic, I found my boxes shoved against the wall. The third one contained Robert's files. My hands trembled as I opened the burgundy folder. Inside was a letter addressed to me in my husband's handwriting, dated just a month before his heart attack. Mary, my love. If you're reading this, something has happened to me. Don't panic. Go see Malcolm Winters. He has everything ready. Malcolm was Robert's attorney. I hadn't spoken to him since the funeral. I clutched the letter to my chest, a strange mix of grief and hope washing over me. Robert was still protecting me, even now. Script part separator, As I drove to Malcolm Winters' office the next morning, my mind raced. What had Robert prepared? Malcolm's secretary looked startled when I walked in. Mrs. Thompson. We've been trying to reach you for months. What? Why? Mr. Winters has been calling the house since 3 months after Mr. Thompson's passing. My stomach knotted. I never received any messages. Her eyes widened slightly before she composed herself. I'll let him know you're here. Malcolm, now in his 70s, embraced me warmly. Mary, thank God. I was about to file a petition with the court. Petition for what? He gestured to a chair. Robert left very specific instructions. If I didn't hear from you within 6 months of his death, I was to locate you and execute the contingency plan. My throat tightened. Malcolm, Paolo and Anna, they've pushed me out. They've enrolled me in a retirement home. His expression darkened. I was afraid of something like this. Robert suspected Paolo's wife might exert undue influence. What do you mean? Malcolm opened a thick file. Robert came to see me 3 months before he died. He was concerned about Anna's questions regarding your financial affairs. She was asking about our money, specifically about the house sale proceeds and Robert's life insurance. He found it troubling. My hands began to shake. What did Robert do? Malcolm smiled grimly. He protected you, Mary. Quite thoroughly. He pulled out a document, the deed to Paolo and Anna's house. My name was listed as co-owner with a 40% interest. But they said it was a gift. Not according to the paperwork you signed. Robert structured it as an investment. Furthermore, he slid another document across the desk. Robert's will hasn't been fully executed yet. The life insurance payout Paolo received was only part of the estate. I stared at the papers, my vision blurring with tears. There's more? Considerably more. And Paolo can only access it under specific conditions, conditions that expressly forbid removing you from the family home. I felt dizzy. Robert knew this might happen. Malcolm nodded solemnly. He said, I know my son, and I fear I know my daughter-in-law even better. Script part separator, Malcolm handed me a cup of water as I tried to process everything. There's one more thing, Mary. He pulled out another document. Robert left you sole control of a trust for Emma and Lucas's education. Paolo and Anna have no access to it. The room seemed to spin. This whole time, I'd thought I was alone, adrift. But Robert had anticipated everything. He'd created a safety net I never knew existed. What do I do now? My voice sounded stronger than I expected. That depends on what you want, Malcolm said. You have options. I thought about Paolo's coldness, Anna's smug smile, the way they'd erased me from that house in just days. I want justice, I said finally. Not revenge, justice. And I want to protect my grandchildren. Malcolm nodded approvingly. Robert would be proud. Here's what we can do. We spent the next hour outlining a strategy. I wouldn't storm in with lawyers, not yet. First, I needed information. Malcolm suggested I meet with Paolo alone, away from Anna's influence. He also recommended I document everything from the day they asked me to leave. Start a journal, he advised. Times, dates, exact words. If this goes to court, details matter. As I left his office, clutching a folder of documents proving I wasn't as helpless as they thought, I felt something I hadn't experienced since before Robert died, hope. Diane was waiting at her house, pacing anxiously. When I told her everything, she hugged me fiercely. Mary Thompson is back in the game, she said. That night, I started my journal, recording every painful detail of my eviction. Then I called Paolo and requested a lunch meeting, just the two of us. He sounded surprised, but agreed to meet at a restaurant near his office. What Paolo didn't know was that I was coming with 40 years of maternal love, Robert's careful planning, and newfound determination. The board was set. And I was finally ready to play. Script part separator, The lunch meeting with Paolo was set for noon at Francesco's, an Italian restaurant he'd loved since childhood. I arrived 15 minutes early, selecting a corner table away from other diners. My stomach churned with anxiety, but I forced myself to appear composed. When Paolo walked in, I barely recognized him. His face was drawn, eyes darting nervously. He kissed my cheek perfunctorily before sitting down. Thanks for meeting me, Mom. Of course. I studied him carefully. Work's been intense. He fidgeted with his napkin. How are you settling at Diane's? I ignored his question. Paolo, I need to understand what happened. After everything your father and I did for you. Mom, please. He lowered his voice. This isn't easy for any of us. Easy. The word felt like acid. You threw me out of my own home. It's not your home, he snapped, then immediately looked regretful. I'm sorry. That came out wrong. Did it? I opened my purse and removed a copy of the house deed Malcolm had given me. Because legally, it is partly my home. Paulo froze as he slid the document across the table. His face paled as he read it. This isn't possible, he whispered. You gave us that money. Your father was wiser than that. He made it an investment. He leaned forward. Paolo, what's really going on? This isn't you. His eyes darted around nervously before meeting mine. For a moment, I glimpsed my little boy again, the one who'd come to me when he was scared or in trouble. Anna doesn't know I'm meeting you, he admitted quietly. Things aren't. They're not good, Mom. What things? He hesitated, then spoke rapidly. We're in financial trouble. Bad investments. Some loans I shouldn't have taken. And my presence was complicating things. Anna thinks. He paused. She believes your portion of the house could solve our problems if you signed it over. The pieces click into place. So getting me into Shady Pines wasn't about my well-being. Paolo had the decency to look ashamed. She found a lawyer who said we could petition for power of attorney if you were in assisted living. My blonde code. They weren't just pushing me out, they were trying to take control of everything I had. What would your father say? I asked softly. Paolo's eyes filled with tears. He'd be disgusted with me. Script part separator, The weight of Paolo's admission hung between us. A waiter approached, but I waved him away. This moment was too important to interrupt. Paolo, I said, reaching for his hand, How bad is it? He withdrew slightly before answering. We're 3 months behind on the mortgage. There are credit card debts Anna doesn't know I have. And, he swallowed hard, I borrowed against the life insurance money Dad left. Oh, Paulo. My heart ached for my son, even as I felt anger rising. Why didn't you come to me? Anna said it would upset you. That after Dad died, you couldn't handle any more stress. He looked up, his eyes hollow. But that wasn't it, was it? She just wanted to control everything. I squeezed his hand. There's more you should know. Your father left provisions in his will, money you haven't received yet. His face registered surprise, then confusion. What money? Mr. Winters said everything was distributed. Not everything. There's a substantial amount in a trust. But your father made stipulations. What kind of stipulations? I took a deep breath. That I remain part of the household. That Emma and Lucas have guaranteed funds for college that neither you nor Anna can access. I paused. Your father knew Anna better than you think. Paulo buried his face in his hands. She'll go ballistic when she finds out. She doesn't have to find out yet, I said carefully. Not until we figure out what to do. He looked up, hope flickering across his face. You're my son, Paulo. Despite everything. But I need to know I can trust you. His phone buzzed with a text. He glanced at it, his expression darkening. It's Anna. She knows I'm meeting you.
How?
She must have seen the calendar invite. He stood abruptly. I have to go. She's threatening to call the bank about the mortgage. Paulo, wait. But he was already rushing toward the door, leaving me alone with half-eaten bread and too many questions. Script part separator, I returned to Diane's house with my mind racing. She took one look at my face and poured a glass of wine without asking. That bad, huh? Worse, I said, sinking onto her sofa. Anna's got Paulo terrified. They're in financial trouble, deep trouble, and they thought getting rid of me was their solution. Those manipulative little. What really kills me, I interrupted, is that they were planning to declare me incompetent. Get power of attorney. My voice broke. My own son. Diane sat beside me, gripping my hand. What are you going to do? Malcolm says I have legal options. I could force a sale of the house, demand my investment back. But that would hurt the grandchildren. I sighed. I need to think. My phone rang, Paulo. I answered hesitantly.
Mom.
His voice was tight with panic. Anna's gone nuclear. She found Dad's will in my email. She knows about the trust conditions. Paulo. She's threatening to leave, take the kids. Says she'll tell them you're trying to destroy our family. He was breathing hard. I don't know what to do. Where are you now? At the park. I couldn't stay in the house. She was screaming. Meet me at Malcolm's office tomorrow. 9 a.m. I spoke with a confidence I didn't entirely feel. We'll figure this out. After hanging up, I called Malcolm, who agreed to the meeting. Then I did something I'd been avoiding for days. I drove past the house I'd helped buy. Anna's car was in the driveway. Through the living room window, I could see her pacing, phone pressed to her ear. Who was she calling? What was she planning? As I watched, Emma appeared at the window. When she spotted my car, her face lit up. She waved frantically before Anna yanked her away. That night, I couldn't sleep. Robert had tried to protect me, but he couldn't have anticipated this level of desperation. What was Anna capable of? And more importantly, what was I willing to do to protect not just myself, but my son and grandchildren? Script part separator, By morning, I'd made a decision. This wasn't just about me anymore. My grandchildren were being dragged into a toxic situation, and Paulo was clearly in over his head. I dressed carefully in a blue suit Robert had always loved, applied makeup for the first time in weeks, and drove to Malcolm's office with renewed purpose. Paulo was already there when I arrived, looking like he hadn't slept in days. His suit was wrinkled, his tie askew. She's emptied our joint accounts, he said without preamble. Took $10,000. Malcolm raised his eyebrows. That's actionable. I don't want to call the police on my wife, Paolo protested. Let's focus on immediate concerns, Malcolm suggested. Mary's position, the grandchildren's welfare, and your financial situation. For the next hour, Malcolm laid out options while Paolo revealed more about their finances. The picture was worse than I'd imagined. Beyond the mortgage and credit cards, Anna had been secretly transferring money to her sister in Florida. Paolo had discovered emails discussing property purchases there. She's been planning an exit strategy, Malcolm concluded. The question is whether she intended to take you and the children along, or just the children. Paolo looked stunned. She wouldn't leave me. Malcolm and I exchanged glances. The evidence suggested otherwise. My phone rang, Diane. When I answered, her voice was tight with alarm. Mary, Anna just showed up at my house looking for you. When I said you weren't here, she started screaming that you're trying to steal her children. She's completely unhinged. Don't engage with her, I said quickly. I'm with Malcolm. That's not all. She said she's filing a restraining order against you today. Claims you're harassing her. The absurdity would have been laughable if it weren't so disturbing. I thanked Diane and relayed the information to Malcolm, who immediately picked up his phone. Judge Franklin owes me a favor, he said. I can block any emergency orders she tries to file. Paolo put his head in his hands. How did we get here? I moved to sit beside him, placing my hand on his shoulder. We've been manipulated by someone very clever, but that stops now. Malcolm's secretary interrupted with an urgent message. Anna had just arrived with her own lawyer. Should I send her away? Malcolm asked me. I straightened my spine, surprising myself with my answer. No. Let's end this right now. Script part separator ===. Paolo's eyes widened in alarm. Mom, I don't think that's a good idea. But Malcolm was already instructing his secretary to send Anna in. The door opened, and she swept in wearing a designer dress I recognized from the shopping trip I'd funded last Christmas. Behind her followed a sharp-faced man carrying an expensive leather briefcase. Well, isn't this cozy? Anna said, her voice dripping with disdain. When she spotted Paolo, her expression hardened. So this is where you've been hiding. Mrs. Thompson, her lawyer interjected smoothly. I'm Jeffrey Parker. I believe we can resolve this situation without further hostility. Malcolm stood, every inch the seasoned attorney. Mr. Parker, your client emptied joint accounts this morning and is attempting to file fraudulent restraining orders. I'd reconsider your definition of hostility. Anna's perfectly composed facade cracked slightly. That money is rightfully mine. And she jabbed a finger at me, is trying to manipulate my husband with lies about some mysterious trust. Not mysterious at all, Malcolm replied, opening a folder. Quite well documented, in fact. I watched Anna's face as Malcolm methodically outlined Robert's will, the house ownership arrangement, and the children's education trust. With each revelation, her confidence visibly diminished. This is ridiculous, she finally sputtered. Paolo, tell them we had an agreement. Paolo looked at her with new eyes. What agreement, Anna? The one where you plan to declare my mother incompetent? Or the one where you've been funneling money to Florida behind my back? You went through my emails? She gasped. After you took the children's college fund for a down payment on a condo in Tampa? Yes, I did. Her lawyer shifted uncomfortably. Mrs. Thompson, perhaps we should discuss this privately. There's nothing to discuss, I said, finally finding my voice. Anna, you have two choices. We can handle this like a family, or we can let the courts decide. Script part separator ===. Her eyes narrowed, calculating. You wouldn't take me to court. Not with the children involved. The mention of Emma and Lucas strengthened my resolve. That's exactly why I would. They deserve better than being pawns in your schemes. Anna turned to her lawyer. I want that restraining order filed immediately. She's threatening me. Mr. Parker cleared his throat. Mrs. Thompson, given the documentation Mr. Winters has presented, I must advise against that course of action. For the first time, I saw genuine fear in Anna's eyes, not for the children or Paolo, but for herself and her plans unraveling. Paolo stood, his voice steadier than I'd heard in days. Anna, it's over. We need to think about the kids now. The kids. She laughed bitterly. You think I'm leaving without them? Malcolm interrupted. Mrs. Thompson, given the financial improprieties we've uncovered, any custody battle would be complicated for you. Courts frown on parents who misappropriate children's education funds. Anna's face drained of color. You're bluffing. Malcolm slid a bank statement across the table. Emma and Lucas's 529 college accounts. The withdrawal history was highlighted in yellow, showing transfers to an account in Anna's name alone. It took every ounce of restraint not to lunge across the table at her. Those were my grandchildren's futures she'd stolen. Robert's careful planning for them, violated. Anna turned to Paolo, suddenly switching tactics. Baby, this is all a misunderstanding. I was just moving the money somewhere safer. For us. For our future. Paolo stepped back from her reaching hand. Stop lying. Please, just stop. Mr. Parker stood abruptly. I need to consult with my client privately. As they moved to leave, Malcolm spoke firmly. We expect the missing funds returned by close of business today. All of them. Or we'll be speaking with the district attorney tomorrow. Script part separator ===. Once Anna and her lawyer left, Paolo collapsed into a chair, his face ashen. I can't believe this, he whispered. Everything I thought I knew about her. It was all a lie. Malcolm began gathering his papers. I suggest we file for emergency custody of the children today. If Anna's desperate enough to drain their college funds, there's no telling what else she might do. My heart raced at the thought of Emma and Lucas caught in this nightmare. Do you really think she'd take them? Better safe than sorry, Malcolm replied. Let's head to the courthouse now. The next few hours passed in a blur of paperwork, sworn statements, and anxious waiting. The judge, thankfully, granted temporary custody to Paolo, with an emergency hearing scheduled for the following week. When we finally returned to Paolo's house, the front door stood ajar. Inside, drawers had been emptied, closets ransacked. Anna had clearly packed in a hurry. Paolo called the children's school in a panic. To our relief, both Emma and Lucas were still in class, unaware of the day's events. We arrived just as the final bell rang, Paolo practically running across the playground. The children's faces lit up when they saw us both waiting. Grandma! Emma squealed, throwing herself into my arms. You came back. Lucas looked around, his young face suddenly serious. Where's Mom? Paolo knelt to their level. Mom had to go away for a little while. We'll talk about it at home, okay? That night, as I tucked Emma into bed in the room that had once been mine, she asked the question I'd been dreading. Is Mom mad at us? No, sweetheart, I said, smoothing her hair. Grown-ups sometimes have problems that have nothing to do with children. Will she come back? I chose my words carefully. I don't know. But I promise you'll always be taken care of. Always. Script part separator ===. After Emma fell asleep, I found Paolo sitting in the dark kitchen, staring at his phone. Anna had finally texted, no apologies, just demands for money she claimed was rightfully hers. She's at her sister's in Tampa, he said hollowly. Already talking to divorce attorneys. I placed my hand over his. Paulo. The next morning brought another shock. Malcolm called with news that Anna had emptied a storage unit containing family heirlooms, including Robert's watch collection that was meant for Lucas and the pearl necklace I'd planned to give Emma on her 16th birthday. Can we get them back? Paolo asked when I told him. Maybe, I said. But some things matter more. We focused on establishing a new routine for the children. I moved back into my old room, cooking meals I knew they loved, helping with homework. Paolo took family leave from work, finally opening up about the pressure Anna had put on him over the years. She always wanted more, he confessed one night. More house, more cars, more vacations. Nothing was ever enough. People like that have holes inside them nothing can fill, I told him. The custody hearing was scheduled for Tuesday, just 4 days away. Malcolm warned us that Anna had hired a high-profile attorney known for aggressive tactics. She's going to paint you as an interfering mother-in-law, Mary, he cautioned. And Paolo as a weak-willed mama's boy who chose his mother over his wife. Let her try, I said with newfound confidence. De truffes on our side. What I didn't tell them was that I discovered something else in Robert's papers, something that might explain Anna's desperate grab for money. Something that would change everything. The day before the hearing, I drove alone to the address listed in Robert's final notes. It was an accounting firm downtown, one I'd never visited in all our years of marriage. The receptionist directed me to a senior partner, who greeted me with solemn recognition. Mr. Thompson, your husband said you might come someday. He handed me a sealed envelope and a flash drive. Robert asked me to investigate Anna shortly after your son's engagement. He had concerns. That night, after the children were asleep, I showed Paolo and Malcolm what I'd found. Anna had a history, previous marriages, financial frauds, even another identity. She'd targeted Paolo deliberately, researching our family's assets before engineering their chance meeting. She's done this before, Malcolm whispered, reviewing the documentation. Paolo sat stunned, the color drained from his face. Dad knew. All this time. He suspected, I said gently. He wanted to protect you, but knew you wouldn't listen. The courtroom fell silent the next day when Malcolm presented the evidence. Anna's attorney attempted to object, but the judge overruled him after reviewing Robert's meticulous documentation. When the gavel finally fell, granting Paolo full custody and freezing Anna's access to all family assets, I felt Robert's presence beside me. He'd protected us from beyond, his love extending past death itself. That night, as we celebrated with ice cream sundaes, Emma and Lucas giggling as they piled on sprinkles, Paolo squeezed my hand. I'm sorry I forgot who my real family was, he whispered. The beautiful thing about real family, I told him, watching my grandchildren's faces glow with happiness, is that we're always waiting with open arms when you remember. And in that moment, with Robert's picture smiling down from the mantel, I knew we'd be okay. The house that had almost torn us apart had become a home again, our home, built on truth and love rather than lies. Some lessons come at a terrible price. But as I looked around at the family Robert had fought so hard to protect, I knew every battle had been worth it.